Hey everyone, this is Marisa from Call to Mothering, and we just recently finished our 6th year of homeschooling. And if you would have told me 6 years ago that I would have homeschooled all 6 elementary school grades, I probably would have laughed at you because it's not something that we ever really planned on. It's not something that was on my radar 6 years ago. And I had not, it wasn't something I intended on doing, but it was something that I just kind of fell into. Something where it was more out of a necessity than anything else. And that was because my husband was planning on taking a job in a different state, and we weren't sure when exactly that would happen. So we didn't want to take our son out of school about a quarter of the way through the school year. So we just decided to go ahead and homeschool him from the beginning of the school year. We decided that over the summer. So I thought it was going to be a temporary thing, but it turns out that a few months into it, I ended up discovering how beneficial it was to my son, and I ended up loving it. And a few months ago, when the schools closed, many of you found yourselves in a position where you were suddenly faced with the task of educating your children at home. And you may have felt completely unprepared and overwhelmed, and like it was something that was just thrown at you. And so I can relate in some ways because it was homeschooling for us was something that we never planned on doing, and we just kind of fell into it. But I did have a few months to prepare, and it was something that we decided on doing for at least a year. So what I've seen over the last few months is people talk about homeschooling being the same thing as distance learning, or homeschooling being the same thing as crisis schooling. And it's not the same thing. With homeschooling, you have the opportunity to plan your curriculum, to plan for your child. And whatever you do can be changed if it's not working. So if you choose a certain language arts program or math program, and you find out that it's not really working for your child, maybe they would benefit from something else, you can go ahead and change that if it better suits your child's needs. About a quarter of the way through last school year, I discovered that my daughter wasn't doing so well with the language arts program that we had chosen for her. She wasn't quite up to the level that I had picked for her initially. So I decided to just go ahead and a quarter of the way through the school year, just change the program that she was using. And even though it meant switching the program and making that switch about 3 months into the school year, it was a great decision because it met her needs better. And I found out that even though it was a little inconvenient and we spent a little bit more money, it was the best decision for her, because if I had just kept her going on the same level language arts program, she would have really struggled continuing on. So that's one of the things that you can do with homeschooling that is perfectly fine, because you are in charge of your child's education, and you are making sure that whatever they are learning is at their level. And so when you choose to homeschool, you're not bound by anyone else's lesson plans and a one-size-fits-all approach to learning. You don't have to adhere to anyone else's timeline or structure for your day. You are in control. You get to plan out what your child learns, how your day flows. You get to plan those breaks. Say if you want to take 10 minutes in between each lesson for younger children, you can do that. And you can go outside and play in the front yard or the backyard. We can ride bikes. You're not nailed down to anyone else's schedule or set of standards. Also, with homeschooling, you have less formal academics and more opportunities for your child to play. And children learn best by playing. They explore and they discover and they experiment and they're curious and they ask questions. And with homeschooling, you have the freedom to do that, and you have the time to allow your child to do that. So you don't have to worry about focusing on formal academics so much when they're young. I'd say until about maybe 3rd grade. It's really more important for them to love learning and to get excited about what they're learning and be passionate about it, rather than you spoon feeding them the information and focusing on all those different math drills and workbooks and worksheets. Because in the end, the goal is for your child to learn and for them to love learning. So, another great thing about homeschooling is that you can meet the needs of your kids right where they're at. Based on their individuality, based on their preferences, based on their level of math or language arts or science, history. You can tailor the education right to your individual child. And you can't do that with distance learning because it's still based on someone else's schedule. It's still based on the teacher's preference, the teacher's schedule, what that teacher wants all of the children to learn at the same time and know and be able to do and excel at for that particular grade. So homeschooling is vastly different than distance learning in that regard. And one thing I've heard from parents is that they're concerned that, based on the last 3 months, that they wouldn't be really good at homeschooling because it was frustrating to watch their child sit down at the computer and try to participate in the lessons and do the schoolwork and pay attention to the teacher, all on the computer with distance learning. And so I want to encourage you that homeschooling looks nothing like distance learning. It's in a completely different category for the reasons that I mentioned. And you also won't have the added stress of a forced education method that may not work best for your child and something that you didn't choose. So with homeschooling, you can go ahead and pick pretty much any curriculum that you want, that you are sure is going to meet the needs of your child. And like I mentioned before, if it's not working, you can change it. You can change it a quarter of the way through the school year or halfway through the school year. You may keep the language arts program that you're using and choose a different math. It's really all up to you how you want to do it and how you want to structure your day. And you have the opportunity also to go at your child's own pace. With distance learning, that is just really an extension of your child's school day, and they were still expected to meet certain goals, certain skills. And so with homeschooling, you have the chance to slow down or even move ahead if your child wants to progress and they are really, really good at a certain subject. You can move ahead in math or go a little bit slower in language arts. So this quarantine homeschooling is really nothing like real homeschooling. It's more like crisis homeschooling. So please don't use it as a gauge for what you would actually be doing in homeschooling. If you thoughtfully and prayerfully decided to educate your children at home on your own, and unfortunately, distance learning has been kind of an unfair taste of what real homeschooling is. So I hope you found this video helpful. Go ahead and subscribe to my channel and ring the notification bell to be notified when new videos are posted. I'll see you next time.